I am joined, of course, by the wonderful Sean Provenza, also known to our community as Quimbulus. Sean, how are we doing this evening?
Oh, it's nice to have you, Dan, back again for another race weekend as drivers are just working their way about halfway through their out laps. Ruprath near the sharp end of it. I'm trying to find... We got 19 drivers on the grid, so a hefty helping of drivers. I'm just trying to see which of these blue dots is the one that's furthest around. It's not Castleman. It's not Nemesis. There's too many blue dots.
It's Povey. It is Povey.
It is Povey, which is right there. So we will ride on board to... Oop, I hit the wrong button. There we go. Let's get things correct. My fat fingering of all kinds of buttons, and we'll ride on board with MJ Povey for our first flying lap of the circuit. Take us around, Dan.
Excellent, will do. Happy to do so. So, down towards turn number 1 then. There's an awful lot of these corners coming up here today. And then we just managed to kiss the apexes nicely there, using about as much as you can get away with in turn number 2 then. Turn 3 is that little left-handed kink there. Not much of a corner in a Formula 1 car. Then into turn number 4 here. Just chucking the car through, then through 5, keeping it tight to the inside before washing out on exit. And then keeping nice and tight to the inside in 5 and in 6, 7, and then 8, 9, down through 10, 11, and now 12. Again, another small kink there before we go down towards turn number 13 into this hairpin. Bit of banking in this particular corner allows you to get the car nice and hooked up, and then on exit you don't want to be getting too aggressive on the power here, otherwise you'll have the back end step out, but no such dramas for Povey this time. Now then, through the next part of the circuit, then into this second sector, where a huge amount of the lap from here on out is at full throttle. Over the course of the whole lap, over 75% is at full throttle as we head through the DRS zone then. One of a number of DRS zones on this particular circuit, 3 of them to be precise. And there we have a purple second sector, unsurprisingly for Povey, given that they are the first ones out there. And into the third sector now then, DRS open once again for the third and final time as they make this run now up towards turn 27, the final turn on the circuit. This left-handed hairpin that's coming up now onto the brakes just before the 50-meter board, through the final turn, and then power out on exit. Then try and straight line as much as possible, opening up the DRS one more time for the start-finish straight, and across the line, a 1:28.1 for Povey on the first run of the day. Next to cross the line is going to be one of the AlphaTauris, that is Elliott. Ruprath crosses the line as well, but they've invalidated their lap, so next will be one of the Astons. I believe that is Mako, and it is indeed a 1:29.4 for Mako. So from the first effort so far, looks like Povey is in a bit of a league of their own, as Clem suddenly puts in a fastest third sector to put them just 3/10 shy of Povey, who's then beaten by their teammate by another 2/10 there. 1:27.9 for Nemesis.
Yeah, first one into the 27s already at the start of this one. Looks like Timolele in the Mercedes going to be next to cross line, goes into the high 28s, joining us for his first race of the season in the Mercedes. A familiar spot for Timolele, as looks like we've got a few drivers just kind of working their way through the last couple of corners. With Queasy has invalidated, so we'll grab Daredevil. But one thing we saw in the first runs in the Open Division race, about half of the drivers that went out for their first flying lap invalidated. So track limits very tough around here.
They certainly are, absolutely, and you'd think to yourself, well, how on earth can that be with a circuit where the walls are right there? But you'd be surprised, through that first sector especially, where the corners have a lot of runoff to the inside, just in case you get it slightly wrong. Of course, Mick Schumacher found out what happens when you get it very wrong in the qualifying session in last year's race. But yeah, for our drivers here today, they have found, a good number of them have found themselves in a bit of a squiffy situation as far as that's concerned. But next one who we're going to watch come round will be Cryptic in the Alpine. Up towards the final turn they come then. Yellow flags are out for the slow-moving cars around them here and on the circuit. And out the final turn they come then, a little bit far away from the wall on exit, it looks like there, but then just straight lining as much as possible, making that as short a distance as they can. And would you look at that there, good lap from Cryptic, 1:28.1. That's faster than the championship leader, Major Castleman, who is down in 5th place with a 1:28.2.
Yeah, that was a properly quick lap, and it looked like he may have even caught lost a little bit of time in the last sector as he was working his way through the traffic. The slow-moving cars may have gone a little wide. Cryptic retires from the session after apparently he's just totally happy with that lap because he just pulls in. Or did he crash? No, Cryptic has crashed on his in-lap. Cryptic, after setting that 28.1. Let me see if I can grab a car coming through.
I think false tracks would be your best bet.
And yeah, he's into the barriers. So, sets a P3 lap time, and then into the walls on the in-lap when you don't even really need to be pushing. And Well, we'll just have to wait and see, as now False Tax has invalidated that lap. Let's see if we can find driver on a hot lap. It looks like Nick is coming through the last couple of meters and is going to cross line 28.4. So, pretty quick from a lot of drivers for their first runs. Those that you would expect towards the top, the Williams pairing, Nemesis and Povey split by 0.2. Cryptic was a half a tenth off. Then you've got Issei, which his first reserve appearance, and we expected him to be quick. And championship leader Castleman and Clem. I mean, you've got 6 drivers that you could easily say could challenge for the win today.
Absolutely, yeah. Especially if they get themselves into a train, and then we end up having all sorts of position swapping going on through these 3 different DRS zones around this circuit. I tell you what, it always does confuse me, this track, in terms of the track map, because you always expect it to be in a different orientation. You sort of expect because the start-finish line is the bottom of the track map as you see it there. But for whatever reason, I expect it to be at the top. But there we go. Maybe that's just a failing on my part. Who knows?
We were riding on board with Bonhomie to start their qualifying lap. A little bit of a spin out of turn 2. It looks like they nudged the wall, but their front wing seems to be all right. But yeah, that lap is already properly ruined. And now we get to play the game of who's actually on a flying lap and who isn't. Habs fan Nick, with the lights on, is not on a flying lap. Looks like we got Mako in one of the Astons gearing up for a flying lap coming up relatively soon. And he's got a new teammate in one of the other rookies. I mean, Daredevil was one of our first rookies last week and had a pretty great showing. He's now, Mako's joined with the other rookie, Chicken Sucker, which is, well, it's just quite a name, isn't it?
It is. Chicken Sucker has migrated across to the FRS from the CRC, which is a league that I commentate on Sundays. Cheeky plug there. But I'm commissioner, I'm allowed. Yeah, we have, so the Chicken Sucker then, they rapidly became a favourite in my house when I was commentating on one of those races because of their name. Not due to their deeds or actions or anything like that, but simply because of the name. So you're absolutely right there, Sean. It is certainly a name.
Yep, and we are switching as MJ Povey is working his way through traffic. You could see, and there is that invalidation as they're starting to kind of push the limits. He needs to find a couple tenths to be up with his teammate QX Nemesis, who is just about to start a flying lap of their own. I believe Clem might actually have just started a lap. So we'll ride on board with a driver that's looking to rebound from last week. They were running up almost guaranteed podium position, and then a coming together with QX Nemesis that in the steward's room was determined they weren't left quite enough space, but then an even later incident cost them all the way down to P7. So there's another car sideways off the circuit. That might have been Elliott there, but let's see where Clem is at on the first sector split, crossing the first kind of timing beam. Has found 2 tenths in that first sector, so a very good first sector for Clem. They still need to find about another 3 tenths over the course of this lap to get up towards pole position, but if they can find similar gains throughout it, and they are catching to the back of a Haas that's on their non-flying lap, and Clem is going to get blocked a bit there.
Yeah, dear oh dear. Now, which Haas was that, I wonder? I'm going to have a quick check now. It was False Tax. So False Tax there, maybe not having the greatest of spatial awarenesses there. But as we keep our focus here on Clem, they come up towards these last couple of corners now then. So through 26, up to 27, hard on the brakes, and then just hitting that apex nicely there, not taking that wide line to, of course, start a lap with as much straight line speed as you can. Getting a slight toe maybe there from the Aston coming into the pits. Across the line they come, and it's P4 for Clem. So they managed to maintain that 2 tenths improvement throughout the whole lap, really only improving in that first sector, it seems. Yeah,
Nemesis is invalid. And it was a tough spot to catch another car because the track switches right, left, right, and if your car going slowly through there with the racing lines swapping sides back and forth, you got to kind of guess and hope you can put your car in the right spot. Castleman looking to try and find some improvements, is a hair down through the second sector. If he can find some time in the final sector, can the championship leader get himself up towards the front row? Like many we see, short lining it, trying to take that direct route, and does not find any time improvement on that lap. See, I think Cruzo is next across the line. Does find about a full second from his previous best, but is Still quite a bit off the back of this one. Issei's found about a 10th and a half, and that would put him pretty up close to the front row, right around MJ Povey. If he can find a good final sector, may even be challenging for pole. Rear wing flips open. Where is he going to cross the line at? And it's P2.
Ooh. Very, very close for Issei. All of a sudden, a new challenger appears in this early stage of the season, it looks like. And, yeah, that's nice to see a McLaren here up the order. It's I'm very partial, as you know, Sean, to a McLaren doing well. So it's good to see. Good to see. I don't think we've really seen that since Fraser last season, really. I was about to say since K-Tomatic, but that would be a huge disservice to Fraser's championship push in what was PC Division 1 last season, of course. So, yeah, there we go. Good lap time from them, of course. Plenty more to come, though, I would imagine, from the Williams pairing. If they don't invalidate, which I suspect happened to both cars there, because we had Povey there invalidating. We saw on board with them. It might have happened for Nemesis as well, but equally, if it didn't, then they just simply didn't improve on that particular lap. And, yeah, we're now on board with Habs van Neck, a driver who really, really impressed me, actually.
Big snap of oversteer there, and that's going to cost him a lot of time.
Yeah. I tell you what, the moment that I say he really impressed me last time, he then goes ahead and does that. Dear, oh dear.
Well, I'm still impressed by the save. There's still some impressiveness going on.
There certainly is, although not very impressive is what on earth this AlphaTauri is doing in front of them here. That will have lost them some time, I suspect. So up towards the last couple of corners they come then. And, yeah, they did incredibly well, I think, in that race last time out. I think they were just hampered by the incidents, really, that were just not their fault. They ended up getting caught in these incidents of other drivers and further down the order than they should have been, really. But hopefully we get to see some better showings for the prancing horse this time out with Nick at the wheel. They've also got Wild Poros in the other car with them this weekend, a driver who I'm not particularly familiar with. Is that one that's one of our rookies this season here, Sean?
They're virtually a rookie. They have been in the FRS. They were in the FRS last season, but they only took part in the first 2 races before they were unable to continue that season. Some things came up and they had to withdraw on the early stages. So they're not quite a full rookie, but they are kind of still very much an unknown factor. They were a lower division. I think PC Division 4 is where they were at last season, but their time trial times and all that have been good. They're sitting P10 at the moment, as we have just 4 minutes left to go in this qualifying session.
We certainly do, and a driver who is doing very well at the moment is Elliott in the AlphaTauri. We've just seen there they've gone about 4/10 up on their previous best so far on this lap. Now, if they're able to continue to improve at that rate, then they get themselves somewhere into the mid to low 128s, and that would see them inside the top 10 quite handily. So let's see then, up to the line they come. Not straight lining it as much as we've seen other drivers do, and ultimately they've actually lost a bit of time somewhere because it's a 3.6 improvement, which sees them up to P11.
Yeah, a high 28 there, so not an ideal lap from them. You know, Elliott, as we've said a few times already, I know I talked about it after the award show. There was a little bit of a kind of a season preview where I was going through the run of teammates, and Queasy basically dragging along the wall. But Elliott is very much a confidence driver. I would say there are days where he's confident and he can be one of the quickest, like we saw in Bahrain. He was hanging with the lead group all day long. And I think this week he said he's not quite so confident. We'll see if that translates to race pace, but you know, we could see Elliott going from potentially nabbing a top 5 finish last week out to he may be fighting for some points this time. But if he can find some of that confidence, maybe get lucky with a safety car, which is not outside the realm of possibility here with all of these walls and high-speed corners, we may be able to see him get in a good spot, snag a couple good points. But it is going to be a fight. I mean, like I was saying earlier, there's probably 5 drivers that I could say could win this race on pure pace, and that's 5 people that are going to take up top 10 scoring positions, I think. And Queasy improves by 0.6, goes P8 overall, just a couple hundredths behind Habs van Nick.
Absolutely, yeah. Very good improvement for Queasy, a driver who was one of my two drivers of the day last time out. The other one being Major Castleman for running what was basically a flawless race last time out. It was really quite impressive. But yeah, Queasy then doing very well to get themselves back up into the top 10 there. They were languishing outside of it for a little while, but good to see them back up the order there. Currently on a lap at the moment is Cruzo. In the McLaren. Now, they've been struggling a little bit so far in this qualifying session. They are a couple of seconds off the pace at the moment, off the next car in front of them. But let's see then, as they come across the sector split, how they're doing. They're currently 400th down on their personal best. It just looks from the onboards as though the car just looks a real handful. So they're getting... It's a bit 2014 Ferrari, really. It looks like they're getting understeer and oversteer at the same time. It's just looking a very tricky car to drive. So perhaps, Sean, is this just a setup that has gone in the wrong direction, that's not giving them what they need? Or is it something that's maybe geared towards higher fuel levels, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, Cruzo has not typically been too much on the pace in Div 1. He was kind of borderline Div 1, Div 2 as far as placements. He's placed himself up into Div 1. But, it is setups-wise, it is a very tough track on the tires because so high speed, you get them into that overheating phase, and that's when you can really get that kind of understeer to oversteer to understeer to oversteer kind of thing when the tires get very hot, and he doesn't find any time on this lap. We'll see if we can grab. I believe Issei has invalidated, so they are not going to improve. Next across the line, Timolele does not find any time there. I think Ruprath is on a flying lap at the moment, has to find a valid one.
I think that for Issei, they were actually finishing off their outlap. It's this new glitch that has been introduced into the game, where in the third sector, the outlap message disappears. So it's just, okay. It is what it is, but there we are then. So yeah, Issei currently on a lap at the moment. We've got Ruprath on a lap as well, a driver who has not set a valid time yet. As we now start to see some drivers crossing the line here at the end of this session, Elliott, Nordi and Bonhomme all setting times now, and that will be the best they're able to do. Ruprath manages to get a valid time and gets up inside the top 10 there, so good effort from them.
Clem is when it counted. Clem is going to be shooting for the pole position, coming across the line if they can maintain that in the last sector. 3/10, and they are fastest overall.
There we go. Well done there to Clem. It's another Red Bull pole at the moment, but will that stay the case? It does, as Nemesis crosses the line. Nemesis crosses the line and is not able to improve. Next one to come over the line will be MJ Povey in the other Williams car. And so as they come towards the line then, it's pole for Povey! Pole for Povey, and only by about one or two hundredths rather of a second.
Castleman
really
found
impressive.
A little bit of time right at the end there, but was not going to be enough to take over pole position. Timolele's improved on his lap, crosses the line, goes up to P7 overall.
Absolutely. Habs fan Nick, though, also a driver who has improved and just shy of 2/10 improvement now as they come through the final turn. Up towards the line they come then. DRS open. How is the Ferrari going to do here? It's P6. They overhaul the championship leader. This is a very, very good qualifying session from them then. And next to come across the line is not going to be False Tax. They've gone into the pits instead. Chicken Sucker is currently doing donuts in the final turn.
While Poros is ducking in, Queasy has invalidated, I believe.
That is everybody,
Ruprath is on the way in. I think everybody else is on an in-lap. So that is where it shakes out. MJ Povey grabbing it by just a little over 100th of a second.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Williams crew have denied Red Bull a second consecutive pole position in this season, keeping things interesting. And with that pole then, that means that our qualifying order is MJ Povey, Clem, Nemesis, Issei, Cryptic F1, then it will be Habs fan Nick and Major Castleman. And then we'll have to just wait a moment whilst we wait for the results to pop back up on screen. But I think it was then Queasy in P8. No, I lie, sorry. It was Timolele, then Queasy. Then we've got Ruprath, Wild Poros, Daredevil, Elliott, Chicken Sucker, Nordi, False Tax, Bonhomme, Mako, and then Cruzo rounds out the grid.
Yeah, man, looking through, you're within a second all the way through the top 10, within a half a second for the top 7 drivers. And yeah, 0.013, the margin of pole, and still within a tenth of pole was QX Nemesis. So It's going to get interesting, I think, in this one. Could be a very, very interesting race. The question is, who is going to handle their tire temperatures well in race situation in order to keep those tires alive and grippy? We saw in the open division race, Nemesis was struggling with tire temperatures, was using a lot of ERS to stay with the pack. I know he's made some adjustments, and so far it seems to be working, but pretty full grid, 19 cars on here, and not a very long run into turn one, only about 200 meters. So could be a bit spicy. Luckily, there's a little bit of a runoff on the inside of turn one, but rejoining it for turn two could be a bit dangerous.
So there we go. Into the race we will go then, not too long. Now, the question here is, of course, going to be who goes for what tyre compounds at the start of this race. As we said during the build-up, it's unlikely the soft is going to be used all that much in the race. It's going to be predominantly the medium and the hard tyre. And if that's the case, well, do we end up seeing drivers getting themselves on the mediums to go quick in the beginning and try and get away from the rest of the pack? Or do we see what ended up being the race-winning strategy last time for Major Castleman, and that being go for the hard tyres, go long in the first stint, and then, of course, get on grippy, fresh, softer compound tires towards the end of the race on those mediums. So it's something which we will sit and wait and see, but we will have 25 laps to find out. So timer ticks down, and we will go to the grid for what I believe should be an immersive formation lap.
It is.
And yes,
full.
it is. So
let's take a look at the tires, see what everybody started on, and there are softs on there for a couple drivers. False Tax and Bonhomie opting for the softs. Mediums all the way through the top 12. Only a couple drivers opting for the hard tire.
Absolutely, yeah. Now, that is interesting. Elliott and Mako then, of course, probably going to be hoping for no incidents at the start of the race, or certainly within the first third of the race, you'd imagine. You want to make sure that you have yourself in a good spot as far as the hards are concerned. You want to be making sure that it's a group of people racing with one another who are not likely to cause shambles. And well, it's the FRS. We can have our good days and our bad days, I think it's fair to say, with that as far as that's concerned. But yeah, so here we go then. Through the next couple of corners then, just trying to get those tyres up to temperature, as we've been saying. Now, the Williams drivers, of course, have a slightly different perspective on things in the cockpit, if they do use cockpit view, versus the rest of the field. Of course, they have that dashboard mounted to the cockpit itself, not to the steering wheel. So any of those drivers who use cockpit view may end up having a bit more of a struggle around a circuit like this, where you're constantly turning all the time. 27 corners, of course, as we say. Some of those corners, in my opinion, not really deserving of a corner number, being given to them. Things like turn 3, for example, not really much of a corner. And other circuits, we would regard things like turns 20 and 21 as straights, really, more than anything else. So certainly 26 you would. But there we are. So we're now starting to see then the pack all getting towards the end of the lap now then, and Povey and Clem have decided to go all out, it's fair to say, on this particular formation lap. And oh dear,
Povey, too much tire warming.
Povey, too much, absolutely, and they smack the wall there. Luckily for them, on formation lap, the damage is disabled, so they won't be starting the race with no front wing on the car, which I'm sure would give them a great acceleration down towards turn 1. The problem would be then stopping it when they get there in that scenario. But as it is then, bit of egg firmly on face. Povey is now going to head down towards their starting grid positions, and this is where we're going to see drivers really pushing the limits as far as this formation lap is concerned, where you're then able to, of course, park the car yourself. Nick has forgotten
where he was supposed to park.
Exactly, yep. So
Castleman
Nick has just pushed it a bit too far. Same with Castleman. We've got Timalele in position. We've got Ruprath in position. Everybody seems to be finding their way in. Chicken Sucker is now just going up towards their slot now. Bonhomie has been disqualified too. Chicken Sucker manages to just get it into the box without disqualifying. It's a very good positioning from Chicken Sucker, actually. I think that's just about as close as you could be. But as it is then, we've got the lights coming on. 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go. A bit of a delayed start, it looked like there from MJ Povey. They might now suffer for it in turn number 1 here as Clem is coming alongside them here. They're going to need to be given the space, and they're really given the chop there from MJ Povey. Meanwhile, further back, Izzy has been able to get alongside with a Nemesis down towards turn number 4 now. Then they go, but it looks like Nemesis might just be able to get back in front again. It looks like no major dramas further back in the pack then, but Habs Van Nick has dropped down the order, down to P10 off of the start there, with Cryptic up to P6, and Queasy Pluto with the greatest start of all, up into P5 now. Great start from the Alfa Romeo driver.
Yeah, it looks like Nordy and Bonhomie kind of came off worse. We saw it for a second there. They were 4 wide coming out of turn 2, and eventually somebody was going to get kind of pinched out of position. But at the front, MJ Povey still leads from Clem, QX, Nemesis. Castleman has gotten down a couple of positions. We'll take a look at Chicken Sucker. He's the closest to an overtaking position, although as I say that, Queasy is really starting to put some pressure on his side. Oh, there's yellow flags. That is just Bonhomie at the back has spun out of the long hairpin. Castleman has made their way past Cryptic, who's going very slowly. Looks like there may have been a mistake out of them. It's hard to find exactly where to grab it. Ruprath is getting ready to make a move. Looks like on Elliott just ahead, as only a 1/10 of a second splits them. And Cryptic falling back through the field. Wild Poros up another position, and Ruprath going around the outside as they head down. A little bit of contact. Chicken Sucker makes a little bit of a touch with Elliott, and it looks like there was nearly a big crash there just ahead. Habs fan Nick dropping behind Cryptic. Povey, unsurprisingly, setting the fastest lap of the race. And is that somebody diving into the pit lane already?
Yeah, that was Cryptic. Cryptic in the Alpine into the pit. So unfortunately, the Alpine curse, or the Endstone curse, I suppose, is very much still alive and well. And their drivers then ended up both having incidents on the first lap there. Nordy way off of the back, and Cryptic in the pits.
Yeah, and Daredevil having to take a pit as well. And Yag brings it up, the Alpine curse. You've got Nordy, who was squeezed out at the start of the lap. And then you've got that incident involving Cryptic a little bit later on. Still some local yellows, as there's, looks like Timalele has had a mistake coming through the first sector. But up at the front, it is very tight. The top 6 drivers all in a nice big train. Queasy Pluto involved with that as well. So we're still getting lots of yellow flags. It looks like a couple of cars rejoining. Chicken Sucker has spun again, and Castleman has jumped ahead of Queasy.
Absolutely, they have. Yeah, it's looking very, very racy in the top 5, top 6 in particular. Queasy is looking very close to the back of Castleman at the moment here. Castleman sets purple second sector, of course, if that's not the glitch talking. And through they go now into the third. We don't have DRS just yet. That will be enabled on the next lap. And as they go through the final turn, then the lead group do go hunting off after that DRS. Now, I think here there's potential for Clem to have a move here up the inside into turn number 1, or maybe round the outside even. They're getting closer and closer all the time then. A little bit of weaving this way and that. Not too much from Povey, but it looks like this time it's a bit of a stay of execution, although
Cryptic is
out.
DRS is now Cryptic is out of the race. He's had a mistake, and there's a full course yellow. There is that yellow dot, so a full safety car being called. So Cryptic DNFing out of this race. I mean, he set a tremendous lap time in qualifying and then crashed, and here he is 3 laps into this race and into the walls. Mako, Chicken Sucker, Elliott, Timalele, Cruzo all coming into the pit lane already. Those hards can do about 20 laps or so. Bonhomie picking up our first speeding in the pit lane penalty. We'll see if drivers are able to go onto those hard tires. They could potentially go to the end. Timalele, Chicken Sucker, they could go to the end of the race on those hards.
Absolutely, they could, and it's interesting. It's very interesting to see this from these drivers. I think that it's one of those things that might pay off for them, but of course it will depend on the restart here. It will depend on just how well the pack behaves with one another, and whether or not they're able to go ahead and get themselves into a nice orderly fashion off of the restart, because of course safety cars tend to beget more safety cars in this league. And so it might be that ends up being the case again here today. We will wait and see. But yeah, to give you the rundown of the order then, now that everybody has gone past the pit lane, it doesn't look as though anybody else is going to chance it, although, you know, we could be wrong. MJ Povey continues to lead the race off of their pole position, and then Clem alongside in second place. We then got Nemesis in third, rounding out another double Williams podium at this early stage of the race here. As into the pits, Povey goes. Povey bolts, goes into the bits, as does Major Castleman, as does Queasy Pluto as well. So, there's some in the top group that are chancing this here, and they think to themselves, actually, well, let's give it a go. Let's see what the alternate strategy can bring us here. So into the box goes Queasy Pluto. I'm just sticking on board with these guys now then. And False Tax, also another driver who is sensible, I think, for them to go into the pits at this stage, having started on those soft tyres. The best of them will be behind them now, and with them only lasting about 8 laps before they're completely dead, with 3 laps on them already and at least another 2 or 3 behind the safety car, you would not be looking at particularly competitive tyres once the race resumes. So away they go. Now down to P12.
False Tax has
here.
opted for the medium tire, got off the softs and went onto the mediums. He did pick up a speeding in the pit lane penalty on the way in too, which is not going to help him. Did he get jeffed, or is it just, I don't know that the medium tires are a good choice.
I don't think they are. I think that what they may be banking on is the hope of another safety car. As we say, safety cars beget safety cars in the FRS, and so if that's the case here for False Tax, then they can go out there, have grippier tyres than those around them who've gone for the hards. They can then try and make some positions up, and then, of course, if in a few laps' time the safety car comes out again, then everyone else has to swap over to the mediums if they want to change tyres, or they have to keep on going with the same older hard tyres, whereas they can then go into hards and comfortably get to the end of the race without having to do any tyre saving. That would be the logic going through my brain if I had chosen the medium tyres at this stage, but that's for us to speculate and for False Tax to know.
Yeah, and taking a look at the big gainers, Mako up 8 positions from the back, Wild Poros up 7 now, and an interesting bit of sequence. Major Castman, right where he started, even though he's taken that pit stop. So he climbed through the order, took a pit stop, and is right back in 7th place. And Elliott and Daredevil, big drops. Povey down 5 places, but that's by virtue of making that pit stop. So it is a little bit not the full story when you see that Povey's dropped 5 places. But yeah, I think by the time we get back to green flag racing, the hards should be able to get to the end of the race pretty comfortably. But the question is, how much pace can these medium tire runners that have stayed out, the Clems, the Nemesises, the Issays of the world, how long can they keep those tires going? Cruzo is taking a late pit stop. He's going to swap off of the mediums and onto a set of hards, which should get him to the end of the race rather comfortably as well. And we should see the field reform on this lap. It's just a couple stragglers, Elliott and Cruzo, as the pack with Bonhomie and Daredevil is just about reattached to the end of the pack, and Cruzo should be able to catch this pack as they're just working their way to the end of Sector 1. So, ideally, we should see some green flag racing at the end of this lap, and we'll see how Clem does with restarting.
Absolutely, we will, and it's going to be interesting to see then. They're taking a big wide line through the hairpin there to try and carry a bit more speed around the longer radius of the corner there, to try and build up some more heat and temperature in those tyres. A couple of shout-outs I want to do as far as drivers who are performing very well so far. Wild Poros, up 7 positions off the start here. Very, very good to keep their composure and so on. Part of that is, of course, to do with the drivers who are now behind them on the hards, like Povey and Castleman and so on, but it's still not to take anything away from them. They've been driving a very good, clean race so far and looked reasonably competitive. Then when we have a look at Mako, they have, of course, made up nearly half the grid at this point in terms of their positions. 8 positions up off of their start on the back row there, down in P18. And so, yeah, very good drive from them as well. And unlike the likes of Wild Poros there, they haven't really been someone to benefit from lots of people pitting in front of them and dropping back behind. It's happened with a couple of cars, but everybody else has got tyres of the same age or older, with the exception of Cruzo, who of course has had a bit of a mare off of the start. So it's interesting to see them further up the order there. It should be a good fight then now between some of our medium and hard tyre runners. And I think that the key here really for those medium tyre runners at the head of the field is, of course, they've only had about 1.5, 2 laps or so on the medium tyre at full racing speeds. The rest of the time has been behind the safety car. So we've actually done more laps behind the safety car now than we have behind the nobody,
speed. behind the person in front of you. False Tax and Daredevil did come back into the pit lane, so Daredevil is on to a set of... False Tech still opted for a set of mediums. So they took an extra opportunity for some new tires and still put on the mediums. And I'm confused. Chicken Sucker is out. Chicken Sucker has crashed.
Oh dear, Chicken Sucker.
Let's see. He is in the barrier on the outside. Did he just wheel failure, or did he just not turn the wheel? It's fascinating, and that's unfortunate. That he had driven a decent start to the race, still had some ground to make up, obviously, but was in a position to with the hard tires to go to the end and maybe have it on strategy. But a very interesting retirement in this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's might just be an instance of a driver being a bit too aggressive with the loud pedal and deciding that, yep, this is how I want to do the race. I want to get myself to the end with nice, fresh, hot temperature tires, and then putting the throttle on a bit too hard, you end up then clouting the wall, possibly. I don't know. I wasn't on board at the time. Certainly the broadcast wasn't. So we'll have to wait and see on that one and see what comes out of the chat room. Finally, we get the message from race control that the safety car is in this lap. Goodness gracious me! It feels like it's been out here for most of the race. Oh wait, it has.
Just about 50% of the race. We did 3 green flag laps, 3 under safety car, and now we'll get back to racing as you see the safety car darting its way back to the pit lane. Clem leading the pack around the final corner. Should be able to go whenever they so choose. We'll keep an eye on the telemetry when they properly slam the loud pedal. Still some weaving going on, and there they go. They've hit the throttle. Overtake is on, and down to turn 1 they go.
Absolutely, yeah. And then look at this behind. It's a classic battle. It's Ferrari versus McLaren for P4 and 3 here. Look at this then. Wild Poros up the inside on Issy. And through turn 1 they go. But Issy hangs it around the outside. Fantastic overtake from them to counter-attack the Ferrari. And that was a good bit of driving there. Further back the order, Ruprath has been able to maintain P5 ahead of MJ Povey. And they are now just maintaining that position there. Then after Povey, it is Major Castman and Queasy Pluto on those hard tyres. Habs Van Nick then has Mako just in front of them. So off of that restart, Habs Van Nick has lost out a position there to Mako in the Aston Martin. And this is the thing then that we were talking about just during that safety car period, is that you need to be able to maintain. Oh, look at this. And yes, absolutely. Castleman up the inside into turn number 13. Well, it's unlucky for some. Oh, not going to hold it this time. Unlucky for some, unlucky for Major Castleman this time, it seems. But they certainly seem to have Povey a little bit more on the ropes than Povey looked in that first stint before the safety car came out. It looked as though Povey was a bit more composed then, but now with the safety car, with this differing strategy and seeing those medium tyre runners starting to pull away from them, I think that Povey is perhaps a little bit rattled, a bit shaken perhaps by what's going on.
Yeah, and he may just have not gotten the hard tires prepared up to temperature. I mean, obviously the front 4 are going to have the advantage by having those medium tires. They warm up a little bit quicker. I love the helicopter shots when they use them, by the way. It just looks so good. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so it looks like Povey is kind of recovered a bit and it's now starting to get on the back. But one thing that we haven't had yet in this race is DRS, because we spent, we were just about to have it activated when we had that safety car, and now we have to wait another 3 laps in order to get that DRS. So we will see how it goes. But it looks like right now, just a huge train. Issei is actually losing ground to the lead battle of Clem and Nemesis. He's just fallen outside of 1 second.
Certainly has, and that's not going to help him at all, especially in terms of defense from that Ferrari while Poros behind, because they are maintaining a gap under a second. That being said, though, it's very close for both drivers. While Poros just dipped outside of a second now, Issy has gone back up within a second of the top 2. Meanwhile, further back, Povey and Castleman, they are continuing to have a good scrap with one another there. Down towards 13 again, it looked as though Castleman was lining up another potential move. Povey moved to the inside to then have a defense on it and keep them behind. And yeah, this is a battle I think that might end up going all race long here, unless, of course, there are any tears at some point. But look at this now, very close indeed. Castleman then is getting all sorts of block. This is great defensive positioning from Povey here, just straddling the line between too aggressive and not so. And yeah, it's great defense from them. a 3-time Xbox Division 1 champion, of course, and then small mistake from Castleman. Get a bit of oversteer there, and that then leaves them a bit more exposed now to Queasy Pluto behind. The Alfa Romeo is getting closer and closer now to the back of the Red Bull. That being said, actually, they've started to pull back away from them again. So it looks like maybe that Red Bull, great in a straight line, maybe not having as much grip in the corners, which might explain where they've been gaining that time relative to Povey here. Povey, though, is having a look at Ruprath now. And Ruprath is going to have a look in their mirrors, I'm sure. But with them being totally unflappable, they will maintain the racing line and simply take turn 1 and 2 as normal.
You saw it for a quick second, though, as they were coming through turn 1. Those rear lights started flashing on the Williams of MJ Povey. So is he burning too much ERS? We know that Castleman is usually a very cool customer when it comes to ERS usage, and does a very good job of saving that and using it in attacking mode. Has Povey been burning it in order to keep ahead of the very quick straight line car of Castleman? And False Tax is out. False Tax is into the walls.
Oh dear.
And it is another
full
safety car.
So we still haven't had DRS, and we're on the 9th lap of the Grand Prix.
Well, it's safety cars are coming out at the exact right time that you need them. And unfortunately for False Tax, the driver who was running a strategy that banked on another safety car, they are the cause of it. So
Yes.
we dial back down, and now surely we see the front 5 take their pit stop and get onto the hard tires. Surely, right?
You would imagine so. You would imagine so, and this is going to leave those who went onto the hards earlier on in a little bit of a conundrum, really, because, of course, those who go in for new hards now are definitely going to be able to get to the end of the race. 100%. They will not have any issues at all. Even if we were going at full speeds for the rest of this race, would they have a problem? The ones who are already on the hard tyres might be a bit more marginal. They certainly, I would bank on.
Ooh.
And there's a collision in the back there. That's Castleman and I think Queasy Pluto. They're coming together in the final turn. Now, how on earth has that happened under safety car?
It looked like coming out of the last corner, MJ Povey had a big snap of oversteer right in front of Castleman, and Castleman went to dodge to the inside, and Queasy Pluto was right there kind of with them, and they all kind of checked up. Now, that's unfortunate. So luckily it happened right before the pit lane, but that means a lot of these drivers are now going to have to swap onto another set of tires and make another pit stop. But yeah, that was just following a little bit too closely. A mistake from Povey, and nobody really had time to react. Now, 15 laps left to go in this race. The medium tires, if you have a fresh set, will go to the end.
Yep, certainly. So it's interesting then that strategy has been adopted by those at the back end of the field here. I think that might be a winner there for them, to be honest with you. That might be a very good shout indeed. That's certainly, I mean, the alternate strategy was what got Castleman the win last time out. Now, certainly they are going to be facing an upwards battle here. With what's going on ahead of them, because not only have they got all these other cars on the mediums ahead, they then have all those on the fresh hards in front, which won't be as quick as the mediums, of course, but they will be consistent at least. They can push those tires as much as they like, and they will not really take all that much of a battering between now and the end of the race. It's those in the top 4 positions, or possibly just the top 3 positions, really, who are then the ones at most risk of losing out here today, I think, because they have everything to lose here rather than everything to gain. They're in the podium positions currently, but they've got the highest tyre wear of anybody on circuit right now. And as I say, whilst a lot of those laps have been done behind the safety car and therefore not at full racing speed, the fact that they went on the car so early means that they might just be that bit more marginal at the end of the race and therefore losing that bit of performance. It's something that we need to consider. But Habs fan Nick up in P2. That makes me happy.
Yeah, up in P2, he can get to the end of the race on him, but it's going to be a matter of... I mean, he does have quite a few essentially rear gunners, because drivers like Castleman in 14th, they've got to come up a lot of positions in order to get back towards the podium, because Mako's not going to... Basically, nobody you should expect to stop for the rest of this race. I think just about everybody should go to the end, regardless of what tire or life they're on. So, yeah, there's going to be some overtaking to be done. We are set up for quite an interesting one. I'm looking forward, because it's going to have to be a lot of overtaking for those on the mediums, and those on the hards are going to be defending for their lives by the end of this one. Hopefully we can have some DRS in this race.
Hopefully. That would spice things up a little bit. What would also spice things up if we suddenly got a downpour in the desert. That would be interesting. I'm sure nobody has got setups prepared for that sort of eventuality. I also think that it's probably not going to happen. As someone who lived in Saudi Arabia for a few years, it does rain there occasionally. And when it does, it bloody rains. But it doesn't really tend to happen in the F1 game.
Yeah, but, maybe one day we'll follow the Uncle Stone idea of sprinklers on circuits.
Well, maybe.
Perhaps.
Maybe one day.
We did
in
do
the hands
it.
of the spectator.
We did
Imagine
do
that.
it
You
in a
press
way.
it.
Nemesis pitting. Or no, Nemesis not pitting. Nemesis dropping through the field. What happened to Nemesis?
Oh, they have spun. They have
no.
lost the back end in turn 13 and then hit the wall, it looks like, as well. Now, it doesn't look to be... Oh, there is damage.
There's a missing end plate on that wing. And I think with the field all bunched up, we may be going back to green flag racing this lap. So he's not going to be able to take a pit stop. He's got damage. Oh, that's unfortunate for Nemesis to have that damage.
That is rough.
That is just awful luck. Now, we didn't get to see. He was in the middle of the pack. I don't know if there was somebody slowing down in front of him that he wasn't ready for. But yeah, safety car is in this lap, so he's not going to have the opportunity to take a stop. Only one track limits penalty, though, so far in this race. Mako with just 3 seconds. Of course, we haven't had so much green flag racing.
That's also very true, but we have had more retirements and incidents under safety car than out of it, which is ironic, I think. But here we are then, ready to go racing once again then. So a race of 3 parts then. The top 3 on more worn hard tyres, then from those from P4
Povey's going
down
very
to
early,
P9.
just coming immediately out of the corner. Clem has gotten a good run, though, it would appear, on the back of Daredevil ahead, while Poros also having a look at Issei. There's a Ferrari in the background, so 2x2, they come into turn 1. Clem to the inside, Daredevil not fighting that hard, while Poros looks like he is battling, and it's just going to get himself ahead, sweeps back to the racing line, and Castleman is up a spot as well at the restart as Nemesis is into the pits, having to make that wing change.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been good moves so far this time round then, so while Poros being able to get themselves up the order then, managed to get that move in turn 1.
Oh no, Daredevil's around. Daredevil's had a spin.
Oh dear. Matt Murdoch is not happy with this race, clearly, and away they go then at the near enough the back of the field. Nemesis, of course, is technically the back of the field, but they are so far off, they're not going to be endangering Daredevil for some time, I would imagine. Major Castleman has been making some moves and are about to make another one, I think, on Nordy here. Just outside the top 10. The Red Bull on the Alpine, they have been hunting all over the back of that rear wing, and now then, good exit out of the corner as they run through turns, I think, 20 and 21 here. I think that's where we are on the circuit. Yes, we are. And so heading
at the same time, Clem has taken position off Timolele as well. So Clem's now got to find almost 2 seconds to catch up to Habs fan Nick Issei. And Wild Poros still duking it out, though.
Absolutely, and Habs fan Nick has been able to stick with MJ Povey throughout this entire first restart lap, and we know how quick Povey is. He got the pole position here today. This is showing that Habs fan Nick is absolutely on it today. They are really, really quick, it seems. They are not losing too much time to the car behind, and given that the car behind has fresher tyres, you would be expecting that gap to be coming down more severely. In addition to the fact that, of course, Clem was on the front row, whereas Nick was not. So, yeah, good driving all round at the moment here, and then here we can see with this heat, they are having a think about it around the back of the Ferrari of Wild Poros. And oh, look at that then. It's very close indeed between the pair of them as they head through the first sector, but it looks as though the Ferrari's just been able to hold off the McLaren's assault for now as they make the run down towards turn number 13. And so as they do so, Queasy Potato is also having a little bit of a ding-dong at the moment with Ruprath. Ruprath then is down in P7, Queasy just behind in P8, and they've got a great exit out of turn 13 here, and
there's
right
just
on
nowhere
the back
for
of
them
the
to go with the switchbacks. There's just nowhere to stick the nose in, and they are starting to catch this group. It looks like Cruzo is around.
Cruzo's round.
But Castleman is up into the top 10. He looks like he's about to put a move on Mako, and we literally switched just in time. And up into P9, Castleman now has to chase down this battle. Wild Poros, Issei, Ruprath, Queasy all getting together. And Habs fan Nick still holding on to the back of the Povey. Clem has caught them up, though, so he's within what we should see. DRS activated this lap, should we not?
You would hope so. We want to see DRS. I think it's only the second lap, though, since the safety car restart. So much has been going on. No, I lie.
Yes.
It is the third. Yes, we've got DRS enabled. Now, don't bring out another safety car before we end up seeing people using it.
And without the DRS.
The front.
Issy
and
inside.
Poros
Still,
here.
these two fighting out. He's going to try to sweep around the outside. Space left by Wild Poros. And
it's very close. It's about as close as it possibly can be. It reminds you of Senna and Mansell at Spain.
I think he may have just squeezed him out of space on that one. That's one of those momentum kind of things. And it looks like Wild Poros was able to at least avoid some kind of any kind of comings together, but not ideal.
Or any such thing as well.
But
yeah,
Castleman is now
ideal.
attached himself to this train.
He has indeed, and he's looking racy here today as the championship leader, as is the driver in front of them. Queasy Pluto's been putting on some good moves here and there, but Ruprath is a driver who can be absolutely, in the nicest possible way, feral in defense. They can be absolutely ruthless and relentless. But as we come up to the next few corners now then, they're able to just keep themselves ahead. They're able to get the DRS open behind the Ferrari. And therefore, that baby Ferrari in the Haas is able to stay ahead
so
of
close.
the Alfa Romeo.
Castleman pushing Queasy through the corner
close.
virtually.
Oh, and look at this now. They're side by side as they come out onto the next part now. And now with a bit of a slipstream for Castleman here. They're up the inside. They're going to be able to get this position, I think, on Queasy.
They're
Here,
going to try and go three
wide.
wide.
It's so close. It's so close. But I think here the ultimate victor might be Castleman.
Oh, and around in the background is Mako.
Mako hits the wall there. They lose the front wing. It's probably the best part of the circuit for them to do that on, I suppose.
Oh, they're going to do it three wide again into
stage.
turn one. Castleman thinking about it. He's going to get around the outside.
Medication?
He's got Ruprath around the outside. It's going to compromise his exit for turn two, but he's at least dispatched one car in this train, and Ruprath has burned a lot of battery to be in that fight. You can see that rear light flashing, but up at the front, Clem, Habs Van Nick, MJ Povey forming a nice little run of three cars out in the front pack of this race. And Castleman now has some ground to make up over these last 10 laps because there are some multiple second gaps in these lines.
There certainly are. There certainly are. And Castleman and Queasy both looking very racy, very competitive. But again, a shout out from me for Habs Van Nick. They've been able to stay with MJ Povey. And not only that, but without giving away figures, they've used less ERS than Povey since this safety car restart. So there's some very good pace in that Ferrari. Might I be able to say my special Ferrari winning phrase at the end of this race? Who knows? We'll wait and see. I won't spoil what that is. Just in case we do. But here we go then. They have this battle still going on between the Ferrari, the Alfa Romeo, and the Red Bull. Down for P6, 7, and 8 here. And Castleman with a major run here. Appropriate for their name, I guess. Ooh. And then, late pull out there from Queasy Pluto. And they then
contact
go
between
the outside.
And Ferrari's able to save it. Looks like kind of that front wheel to front wheel where the inside car gets sideways. That has cost Wild Poros dearly. And now Castleman attacking Queasy, who has no DRS and is running low on battery. Castleman trying to go to the outside. Can he keep the nose alongside? There's contact between the two. There wasn't quite room left, but was there room needed in that case? But they are going to duke it out and continue to go down.
They are. I think that Castleman there, a move of frustration perhaps, given that they were being squeezed off of the circuit, then made contact with Queasy Pluto there. It didn't look great from my angle for either driver, to be honest. It looked like they were starting to get a bit scrappy and a bit non-compliant with one another. But that produces great racing for us to watch, I suppose. Issy has been able to get themselves right onto the back of Timolele here, and they are that McLaren is looking competitive as well. It's just a bit of a shame, really, that they're carrying that 3-second time penalty. Otherwise, they would be in a much healthier position. As it is right now, if the race was to finish like this, not only would they not get past Timolele, but they would also fall back behind Major Castleman.
Castleman's got to run again on Queasy. He's burned a lot of his battery, and wow, look at the overspeed he had there carrying through and just sweeps past the Alfa right now. The Alfa Romeo, I think was behind at the detection point, so now Queasy is going to get to have that rear wing flip open and potentially re-attack. Issei is out. Issei has crashed. And it looks like there's
left. That's the front left corner that's been ripped away. Sorry to talk over you there, Sean, but that is the front left corner that has been ripped off of the car.
That's a full safety car. That is a full safety car. It looks like he may have tangled with Timolele because Timolele was going very slowly between the two. Castleman into the pit lane, Povey in, Nick in, Clem in. So
There is damage
Pluto
on
has
Timolele's
stayed out.
Mercedes.
A little bit of hesitation for Castleman because Clem was into the pit lane ahead of them, and it looks like Castleman's getting a new front wing as well. But as it stands, Queasy Pluto has stayed out on their 7-lap-old medium tires. Clem onto a set of softs. They can get to the end of the race. There's 8 laps left to go. They may have some deg problems that we've seen in 22. High degradation on those softs. They tend to be very slow, but Issei fighting for a podium position. He could have gotten up there, and then it looks like he just tangled with Timolele, and it collected them into the wall.
Absolutely. I tell you what, look at this then. Shambles in Saudi. Who'd have thought it? As now then, Nordi, after being in a bit of the wars this race, it must be said, the Alpine curse we mentioned earlier on seemed to be alive and well, is now in P2. And right in front of them is Queasy Pluto.
And, well, you've got an Alpine up there now. So, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting. I think, though, the age of these tires, I think they're going to be in a little bit of trouble.
We'll wait and see.
At least from the chat, while drivers were taking their stops in the pit lane, you see Timolele saying he thought he left space, so it does appear there was a coming together between the two of them. Seems to be all quite civil, because Issei saying it might have been his fault. So it's nice to see that when an incident happens, it's racing. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at this stage of the game's life cycle as well, given that a lot of the issues have been patched, not all, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the issues have been patched, it's now not as frustrating an experience for players as it used to be. So I think that as a result, general tensions are lower than what they used to be. Thankfully, that's the way that we like it in the FRS. So, major winners out of all of this then, I think in the short term, Daredevil has done very well indeed to be up in P6 now, but they're the only car now on hard tyres.
And they're
12-lap-old hard tyres
they're old
as well.
So
it's going to need to be some mountainous defence, I think, from them here in order to finish inside the top 10. Never mind just finish where they are right now. Then for Clem as well, of course, that's the risky strategy here. Now, 8 laps was the prediction in terms of our graphic at the start of the show to say how long the softs could go here. So they are going to be very marginal at the end of this race, I suspect. I think that they'll be very racy when we get going again, but it's going to be a tricky one for them. Povey, I think, should have no real issues in dispatching Nordi and Queasy up at the front, given the offset in tyre life, and then, of course, how quick they've been around the circuit here today. Habsvan Nick, I'm slightly worried for, because they've got, of course, those cars to overtake in front, and then they've got a racy a racy Clem rather behind. Then we've got Ruprath in a very good position in the Haas with P7 on lock with new medium tyres. Then Nemesis behind has been able to have the recovery of all recoveries here after that incident at the end of the previous safety car period, although they are going alongside the Haas there of Ruprath. Now, I'm not sure that that's allowed in the regulations, but just something to keep an eye on, I suppose. You know, we don't want to end up having any incidents, as we saw under the previous safety car, of course, where we had Povey making that mistake, and then the other drivers too close to them, one alongside the other, end up collecting one another into the wall, of course, that being Queasy and Major Castman, who is now down in P10 on 4-lap-old mediums. So they've run out of fresh medium tyres at this stage, have gone back to the set that they started the race on, presumably. And so there we are then. Safety car in this lap, so at least it's a short safety car period, like the second one, and unlike the first. And we get ready to go racing once again then with Queasy Pluto about to lead a Division 1 race under racing conditions for the first time, unless, of course, they're going to be overtaken by Nordi, Povey, or anybody else in the field when we get going again.
I will say it also wouldn't be the first time, and I bring the curse in, but it wouldn't be the first time we've seen a leader spin out of the final corner trying to restart a race too quickly. So there he's gone. Full throttle is down, and he is safe. And behind, Povey has gotten an absolute rocket start. He's going to jump right past Nordi. Clem also going side by side with Habsvan Nick, using those soft tires down the inside. Povey having a look, Clem having a look as well, and it looks like They're going to kind of sort it out. Habs fan Nick losing out. Nemesis is around in turn 1. Looks like after getting that kind of restart, he's been shuffled back. Clem now working their way past Nordy as well. So more positions gained for a couple drivers. Habs fan Nick getting through, though, relatively quickly. If he can stick on the back of Clem, he may be tugged back up to where MJ Povey is.
Well, we do like a good tug here in the FRS. And now then we see Ruprath off of that restart has been able to get Daredevil now. So they have gotten past the Mercedes driver, who is going to be a bit of a sitting duck for the rest of this race, to be honest. Unfortunate for them. Nordy is still running, still in a good position. And on those very old tyres, of course, Queasy is still maintaining the lead here ahead of MJ Povey. This has been a good first lap from them here. And crucial thing to note as well is that Povey has used a lot of ERS to get to where they are now. On the back of the car in front.
Getting ready to make a move on Daredevil. Daredevil kind of let his Mercedes teammate Tim Lele through pretty comfortably. Castleman had to big swapper for Castleman. And now he's got just the firing line of cars coming up behind him. Can he keep it? Looks like he's gotten back up to racing speed, but he is all the way running last. Povey taking the lead, but Queasy Pluto fighting back out of the final corner. And Castleman, just that one twitch, goes from P7 to P15.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. But now down towards the first corner, rather. MJ Povey tries to swing it all the way around the outside. They do so. It looks like Queasy's going to attempt the switch back here and then maybe try and move around the outside in turn 4, possibly. This is going to be close between the two drivers, and then just squeezed out there by MJ Povey is Queasy Pluto there. But now the threat comes from behind once again with Clem on those hard-charging soft tyres. They are very close here. They might even chance one up the inside into turn 13 here. I wouldn't put it past them, but they may end up putting their car past Queasy Pluto here. As it is, no, they tuck back in behind. They take a wider line to get that nice exit out of the corner. And now then on power here, they're very close to the back of that car in front. Are they going to be held up here, though, or will they end up having to... Oh, there's a bit of a tap at the wall as well. That might be damage, possibly, for Clem, or could it be that those tyres are already starting to lose grip here?
Castleman has made a pit stop in P15. He's onto a set of soft tyres now, but it is 20 seconds off the back of the field. It's going to be a tall ask. At this point, he's just banking on taking a point away from somebody up in the top 10 that has that fastest lap point already. Nemesis and Cruzo fighting with the two of them, as Nemesis is going to try and find his way back to the points. Clem, on those soft tires.
Sorry to jump across you there, but round the outside before we got to the final hairpin, and then now it is going to be what looks to be a straight fight now between Clem and MJ Povey at the front. DRS has now been re-enabled once more. Clem, a little bit of a move to the inside there for defensive purposes, but I don't think they need to be too worried there. The soft tyres should see them through on that start-finish straight versus Queasy Pluto behind, given Pluto's tyre age themselves. And it's now Habs fan Nick potentially with the opportunity to get themselves on the podium with the Ferrari here if Pluto makes more mistakes like the one we've just seen there. Big slide. And now look at this then. Cruzo fighting for that final points-paying position, potentially, with Nemesis as well. But Nemesis manages to get the move done on them. The driver currently second in the championship manages to get themselves up to P11.
Oh, and Wild Poros
something I
picked up a
expected to
3-second
see
time
here
penalty.
today. Oh dear. So that's going to mean points then potentially for Nemesis, although that being said, Poros is getting a shift on. They've gotten a move done past Daredevil then, so Daredevil has now got themselves down to P10. They're going to hope they can hold on to that solitary point here today, as Clem is still within DRS now of MJ Povey. Povey has got that flashing red light on the back of the car. Cruzo has spun.
And Habs fan Nick makes the move past Queasy Pluto and has overtaken him. Now, was that a strategic move by Queasy to let him through, grab the DRS at this point, because now he's going to reattack? Queasy is on those older tires. They are worn out a bit more, but Habs fan Nick stayed with the pack enough to keep that DRS, and let's see if he can get back up to Clem. I think they may be just a little bit too quick, and lots of flashing red lights up at the front of the pack here.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that we're going to see a potential move here for the race lead down in towards turn number 1. Here we go then. And Clem moves to the outside. They manage to swing it all the way around the outside. MJ Povey, no! Povey tries to squeeze them off the circuit. There's a bit of retaliation there from Clem, just getting the elbows out, and they make the move stick. They get past MJ Povey, and now then they have to build up a 1 second gap before we get to the next DRS zone. Now they've got another about a half a lap or so until they get there, but that's a tall tall ask at this stage. They have a half-second gap at this point, but both drivers very much lacking in the ERS department here. Habs fan Nick has also managed to get themselves back within a second of the top two as well, so potentially we could see the Ferrari moving further up the order as well. Great bit of driving from them here today. Quisi Pluto as well has lost the back of the Ferrari, but they are still 2 seconds ahead of Timolele, so they are also in a great position as far as their driving is concerned here today. Further down the order, we've then got, let's have a look here. We've got Nordi fighting Mako at the moment, the Aston versus the Alpine, and they are very close indeed. Big offset in terms of the tyre age there, 5 laps or so. DRS open for Mako now as they make the run up towards the back of Nordi. This area you wouldn't normally think of as an overtaking spot, and certainly this time it isn't for Mako, but they have spooked Nordi into a bit of a mistake there. And now as they run through up towards the next DRS straight, this is where the move will happen, I suspect. And so through up towards turn 13 they go then. Will they try for the tactical lift off here to get the DRS next time? It looks like no, it's not quite worked for them. Nordi will have the DRS this time as they go down the start finish straight. And so it's Mako up into P74 now then, but Nordi, there you go, you see the DRS pops open on the back of the Alpine. They go to the outside now on the run down towards the first corner, and there's contact, side-by-side contact between the pair of them there, and that then opens the door for Wild Porus to maybe end up taking the move from
contact!
Mako. Contact there between Mako and Wild Porus. Porus manages to maintain P10 for now, but Elliott, there they come, and Elliott gets the position up into P10 they go in the Alpha Tauri. Meanwhile, up at the head of the field, it looks like things are pretty close there between our two drivers up at the top end of the field. It's been very good so far.
Now the question is, we've got 6 laps on those soft tires of Clem. Are they going to actually going to run out of grip? Because MJ Povey seems to be coming back at Clem now as they are reaching the last couple of laps of this one. So are those softs going to drop off and allow MJ Povey to reclaim the lead? And oof, could be an interesting finish in this one.
I think that we cannot count out Habs fan Nick here. I think the Ferrari driver has done incredibly well in their fight back here, and they are really, really looking racy here today. If they're able to get themselves up onto the back of these two before the move happens, but that being said, I think it might end up happening this time here. Povey's red light is flashing massively. You can see them there just trying to deploy as much as they can to try and get within a fight here of the car behind, and the car behind car in front rather is now the car behind. But as they go in towards turn number 1, then there's clearly a bit of grip left in those softs, because fighting through turns 1, 2 and 3 goes Clem versus Povey, and Clem somehow manages to keep that Red Bull in front of the Williams. Brilliant racing, and all this has allowed Habs fan Nick to get closer still to the back of this battle. This could turn into a 3-way fight in the last couple of laps here, as we're on lap 24 of 25 in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Yeah, and Elliott is fighting quite a bit with Nemesis down at the bottom. It's kind of for educational or what's the word? Academic purposes only, because Nemesis carrying time penalty. Elliott would jump into the points, but it is very close up at the front, and Nemesis now has another 3 seconds worth of time penalties. But we've seen it already a few times in this race. Cars going side by side into a corner, having to check up in order to catch the car. Habs fan Nick sees the 2 cars go side by side and they make some contact. He could just slip his way right through on the last lap and potentially sneak himself a race win. But as it is, driving incredibly well in the Ferrari, now getting closer and closer to this lead pack, as that looks like Clem is definitely slowing down on those soft tires.
Absolutely, they are. It does seem to be that way. Up towards the final couple of corners, they will come now. And it looks like for Habs fan Nick, they have gotten very close indeed to this battle in front. They're now right there with the other 2 cars. And it looks like all the cars are now deploying as much ERS as they possibly can. DRS open on the Red Bull and the Ferrari. The Red Bull has come back and has been able to sail past MJ Povey there. Absolutely brilliant. And now the Ferrari might do the same. Round the outside, turn 1, it's contact. Povey does not give the space to the Ferrari, and that then means there is contact between the 2 cars. That has meant that the 2 of them slow up in comparison to Clem. This could be exactly what Clem needs to seal the win here today.
Still 0.7 of a second the gap, and I think those soft tires are dying out. Povey may have one last chance. He'll probably use the second DRS zone to close up. Habs fan Nick running well off the circuit there, gathering the car, but I think Povey will use the second DRS zone to get right on the gearbox and use that final DRS zone to try and make the overtake stick into the last corner. House fan Nick might be just a little bit too far back, but does Povey go for it early? He's only a 10th back. He's going to be right in overtaking opportunity at this next DRS zone.
Absolutely, down towards the next corner they go. Then turn 22 is going to be your potential overtaking opportunity here. DRS could be open on Povey's car at this point, but they have chosen not to. So DRS not open on the Williams. It was open on the Ferrari, practically pushing the Red Bull through the corner now as we head down towards the final DRS sector, the final couple of corners. DRS and ERS rather is being used by all three of these cars. They're practically at empty on the battery. MJ Povey goes for a sudden final move in the final turn, and it's not quite worked. It's gone sideways, has the Williams, and that means that Clem is going to come up towards the line. Red Bull take a second win here today in Division 1.
And only half
for the
a
second
tenth
race of the
between
season.
Povey and Habs fan Nick. Only half a tenth between the two of them.
Oh dear, and Povey very aggressive in the defense there in the blocking. I think that might be something which might be investigated by the stewards there. There were a few instances of it in that race, not just with Habs van Nick, but with other drivers as well. And so it could be potentially we see the Ferrari in P2 here. Timolele manages to come home P4, and the rest of the field has come in all that time that we've been focusing on that fight at the front, and shows how close this race has been for the most part. Major Castleman will come across the line. Unfortunately for them, at the back of the field here today.
Yeah, after he swapped onto those softs, though, he did take the fastest lap away, so Clem was not going to score an extra point for that fastest lap, so it helps. But yeah, Cruzo sideways out of the exit of the last corner. Not much he can do with the entire field coming around. He just kept it parked and didn't move and took the DSQ rather than trying to unstick his car and potentially blocking more of the racetrack. It made for an interesting final, but Habs fan Nick almost grabbing second place.
Oh dear, that is a great race to go on there. We've had two fantastic races so far in Division 1. So here in the new format then, with cross-play in our divisions, Division 1 then, we have a first win for Major Castleman, and now a first win for Clem as well. The PlayStation champion has made their mark on this championship now. After a rocky start in the first race, they bag maximum points here today. MJ Povey then in second place, with Habs fan Nick scoring their first podium of the season in the Ferrari, and Ferrari's first podium in a top flight division with PC drivers for a number of seasons now. So even though they are, of course, an Xbox driver. Then in P4 down, we have Timolele, Queasy Pluto, Ruprath, Daredevil, Mako, Nordy, Elliot, Wild Boros, Bonhomie, QX Nemesis, Major Castleman, Issy, False Tax, Chicken Sucker, Cryptic, and then finally Cruzo disqualified from the race. So there we are then. That has been your Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here today. Fantastic race for the most part, but we've had a few more of our typical FRS shambles here. And I'll tell you what, I've just opened the Twitch chat and Coral has said the exact same thing. So there we go. It seems as though the knowledge of FRS is alive and well in those watching at home. But yes, there we are then. So, Sean, driver of the day here today. Lay it on me.
Habs fan Nick, without a doubt. He's not quite as pacey as these top guys normally. He hung right with them the entire race, nearly snuck his way through into a win. But a podium for Habs fan Nick, an excellent drive, made the overtakes he needed to on Queasy, built a big gap, and just hung with the top group. So top tier, Habs fan Nick, my undoubted driver of the day.
And I think that I cannot disagree with you. Last time out, we had a disagreement of opinion, but this time, absolutely not. Habs fan Nick, driver of the day for me as well. Just a solid race, kept it clean, had the battles there that were good to see, but it was hard, and we'll find out if the stewards deem it fair, of course, if there were any potential penalties to be submitted. So there we are then, folks. That has been your Saudi Arabian Grand Prix here today. I have been Daniel Gilligan. I have been joined by Sean Provenza in the virtual commentary box. Please give the channel a follow and join our Discord as well if you want to chat all things Formula 1 when the season gets started later this month with testing, and of course to keep an eye on all of the FRS shambles. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.